Please provide a brief overview of your company and the primary products or services you offer hosts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks, Brinn. So OwnerRez is we're labeled in both spheres, I would say, a product property management software, a PMS, and channel management. So, kind of one of the main things is, managing those bookings between the different channels, Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, direct bookings, what have it. Um, all our channel management's built in house, whereas some other companies, they use third-party channel managers. So I think we're unique in that we fall into both spheres, but that's primarily, yeah, property management software for clients from one up to our largest customer has 1,500 listings. So we can run the gamut. That's short answer.
Awesome. Which of the following is your product or service? Which of the following does your product or service specialize in? A short, mid, or long-term rental?
We definitely specialize in short term. I mean, we were built. OwnerRez is going on 11 years old, and we were built, around what Vrbo and Airbnb provide. Well, once Airbnb came on the scene, which was younger than that, but built around what they provided. But as they're expanding their offerings, like Airbnb is getting more into midterm rentals, I'm sure we'll, move into that as well. We can handle mid and long term, but definitely we specialize in short term. So.
Awesome. What sets your product or service apart from your competitors in the market? What are your unique selling points?
Yeah, no. So I mean, one of the main things I think when people ask this question, they're wanting to know features, right? What feature do you have that somebody doesn't have? But in the end, I mean, there's hundreds of competitors, and it's hard to say what we do that somebody doesn't, right? I mean, there's so many different features and whatnot. But I would say one of the main things is we are Vrbo Elite. There's, I believe, only 11 other Vrbo Elite partners out there, and we're Airbnb Preferred Plus, which I think there's only 15 of those or something. So out of the hundreds of competitors, there's only a few that have met those benchmarks, right? And it's just like how hosts can get super hosts or whatever, right? They have benchmarks that are kind of hard to achieve, and we really have to work. It's not like we just rest on our laurels to get those. So I'll say that's one of the big things. If you are looking at a bunch of different, people in the space, have they met those benchmarks? It's no different than your guests, right? They're going to look and say, oh, well, here's a property and here's a property that both look the same, but this guy's a super host and this guy's not. Maybe there's a reason why, So I will say that's one of the things. Key features, I will say we believe speed is a feature. That's something a lot of others don't talk about necessarily. But in OwnerRez, whether you have 100 properties or you just have 5, we want the product to be as fast as it can be. So, and I'll show you in the demo when you go to load a new month's worth of bookings, it's up in a second, whereas I do hear with some of our competitors, as you get to those higher property counts, things can lag, slow down. So we believe in that. And then last thing, I just, in this sounds cheesy, I guess, but I do like to say it. I think it's our people, right? Like we are a smaller, leaner company. I've been with the company 4 years. When I started, I was employee 13, I think. We now are up to 50 employees, but over half our employees are owners as well. So I own a property. So when you call in and ask for a question, not only am I going to tell you, well, technically this is how you do it, but maybe this is why you should maybe this is why you don't want to do what you think you want to do. I mean, I deal with a lot of hosts, and maybe you're not thinking about it the right way. So I do think that makes us unique because so many other people, right? They just have call centers. You're calling somebody in the Philippines, and they don't know the first thing about short-term rentals. So I think that makes us a little unique. But.
Awesome. Those are great points. What level of technical expertise are required to use your product or service effectively? And do you provide any training or support to help hosts get started?
Yeah, I mean, we work from, I mean, I wouldn't say there's a entry level to technical expertise. I mean, I work with people every day. That's a common thing. They're like, I am not tech savvy. And it's like, that's fine. We will get you through it. I mean, I will say the setup with OwnerRez can be, I mean, challenging for some people just because I guess go back to how we differentiate. A lot of other companies out there, they kind of lay it out. They have a very easy onboarding. It's like, oh, I got my stuff up in 5 minutes. But then you'll find as you start using the software, well, it didn't allow me to do this, and it doesn't allow me to do this. They kind of push you down a path, right? Like this is how you should do short-term rentals. We provide a lot of logic and stuff that like, well, if you want to do a co-host model, you can set it up this way. If you want to do, a traditional PM model, you can set it up this way. So we have a lot of things. So setting it up can be complicated, but I do get people all the time once they set it up, they're like, I was kind of nervous during onboarding, but now that it's set up and running, it's awesome, and I'm doing all this stuff. So do we help though? Yes. The big thing is so we do give you a free 2-week trial when you sign up. So that's give just the time to bring in 1 or 2 properties or whatever and see how things look and feel. And then if you say, I want to move forward with this, our onboarding team gives every new trial customer a phone call just to welcome them. And then they'll send them what they call a jumpstart call. And so that's a 1-hour free onboarding call. And we have a checklist that you go through as you're setting things up. So I tell people, take notes while you're in that checklist. Like, oh, I got to this step and I was having a little bit of trouble, right? So they take their notes. And then when you have that call with the onboarding team, you can go over those notes. They'll check your work, see what you've done so far. And if you've gotten far enough on your own, they'll even help you connect to all the APIs and get everything hooked up. And we started a 1-hour free call, but if you do need a second hour or a third hour, sometime, we'll do that on a case by case basis. So yeah, we're here to help. We don't want to just say, nope, set it up and you're done, but yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And then can you give 2 or 3 common challenges that your products or service addresses, specific challenges faced by hosts, such as guest communication, cleaning management, price optimization?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are all great ones. I would say the number one common thing people, I think, find OwnerRez for and come to us for is they want to do direct bookings, right? They're on Airbnb now. They've never done direct bookings. They don't know where to start, so we are a big proponent on the direct booking side of things. I mean, Airbnb and Vrbo and Booking.com are great partners and everybody needs them because let's face it, they have marketing you could never get on your own, right? Me and you can't afford to buy a Super Bowl commercial. They can, right? So, anyways, so you're always going to need them, but it is nice to start building that direct booking business. So we offer hosted websites to help do that. We also have built-in payment processors and whatnot. In Europe, it might be Stripe, is the primary one we have, but we do have 20 different payment processors that we connect with. So that's a little differentiating point too. A lot of people say, here's the one payment provider you can use. We do have a multitude you can choose from and use the one that fits you best. But yes, that's a big problem. Yeah.
Just a question on the, are you able to handle booking deposits with those processes?
Yeah, so I mean, we can either do
are they an automated type of procedure you can set up as well? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you're using a payment processor, you have 2 choices. I mean, if you have a bigger property, maybe you want to do a refundable damage deposit where you're taking €1,000 upfront or $1,000, whatever market you're in, and at the end you pay that back. But the problem with doing that model that people find is they're like, man, I'm getting charged a percentage by my payment processor on every deposit I take, right? Even though I have to give it back. Because let's face it, the payment processor did their job. They took the money, so they should be paid. Well, but what we allow you to do is you can set up a hold instead of a deposit. So it's a pre-auth on the credit card, just like gas stations do or hotels or whatnot. So yeah, and that's automated in OwnerRez. We're basically saying you set up your rules. I want to take, a $500 hold 2 days prior to their stay and 2 days after their stay. As long as I didn't claim it, it's going to be automatically released. So yep, that's set up 100%, something you don't have to worry about. It just happens in the background. So yep. And that's something you can't do if you're not using PMS. They even have rules on Airbnb. You can't take money off platform with one exception. You're a software connected host. So when you're API connected, there's a different set of rules that apply to you for Airbnb and Vrbo and stuff. So yeah.
How does your pricing model work? Are there any setup fees, monthly subscriptions, or additional costs that hosts should be aware of?
Yeah, no, I mean, we are just a monthly subscription and it's month to month. So, and I mean, I can show you real quick, Bryn, if you want me just we try to be as transparent as possible with our pricing. So let me just share my screen here just so you guys have a, um, it says I had to request the share. So let me just share this real quick. Okay. So let's see, this is the slide I had up. Let me just pull up our pricing real quick. Um, yeah, because we're not one of these places that you have to ask for a quote or anything. If you come to our main website and you come to pricing here, you just put in the number. So we are by the listing. So if you're gonna have 5 listing with us, the core is $88 a month, and that gets you most everything. But there are some things that like not everybody needs, right? Maybe you're just an owner of the property and you don't need our property management module. The property management module calculates commissions, it helps you generate owner statements, record expenses. But if you did want that, you would just click include. QuickBooks, even though a lot of the financial data is in OwnerRez, we do say we're not a full blown accounting software. So if you wanted to connect, we have a really cool integration that basically, it will, every time a booking comes in OwnerRez, it will create an invoice in the QuickBooks. We'll also send the payment data and then create an offsetting bank deposit so that it all ticks and ties at the end of the month or whatever. So we do have an integration. If you wanted to use that, that costs a little extra. Host a website. And then in the States, so in Portugal, it's not going to help you out, but SMS is North America only. But we are working on adding WhatsApp. We're actually, that's in beta testing. So once that comes out, that will probably be the same cost as SMS messaging. So worst case scenario, you turn everything on, it's $174 a month for 5. But as you scale, you see it gets less per, when you get up into the, 20s, for instance, this only less than $20 per property. As you get up higher, it's even less per property, right? Where we get closer to that $10. I think the magic goal is $10 per property, is what a lot of people look at. So as you get more and more, you get closer to that. Now, if you didn't have any of these features, if you're just using, maybe you're just using the website, you want direct bookings and that's it, then we're well, into that $10 a month range. So, yeah, but and there's no hidden fees. We don't charge you a percentage of your bookings at all. A lot of our competitors, they'll tell you, oh, it's a monthly. And then you find out later, oh, wait, I have to use Stripe with them, and they're charging me 4% per booking or whatever, or 5%. And it's like, yeah, but Stripe in the US at least is 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. So that PMS is actually adding an extra percent for using them. We don't do that. So that can really add up to a lot when you have 100,000 revenue a month, and you're getting charged that extra percent. So the only other fee that's not on this chart that you could possibly, and once again, this might not apply to some of your viewers, but we do offer damage protection built in through a company called Rental Guardian. If they, but that is mainly in North America right now. So if they are using that, they buy that insurance premium per booking, but it's all outlined and, shouldn't be a surprise. But yeah. So that's the pricing model.
So does it automatically add those? So let's say you were to take the angel funding per booking, does it automatically calculate and put that onto the booking and the charges and stuff?
What do you mean an angel funding? I'm not.
Sorry, the protection, the.
Oh yeah, the damage protection. If you were using that, yeah. Well, so you're responsible for paying it. It's charged in your OwnerRez subscription, right? But yeah, a lot of people want to just pass that on to their guests. So you can make a surcharge. And that's what I personally do. I use it. And like I have a $3,000 policy per booking. That costs me $45 US to purchase. So I have a surcharge on each booking for $45. So it ends up not costing me anything. The guest is paying it ultimately.
Awesome. So you can, it does have the functionality to add those things onto the guest side of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so what level of customization or flexibility does your product or service offer to cater to unique needs of different hosts and their properties?
Yeah, like I said before, I think we're one of the more robust solutions out there when it comes to flexibility. I mean, there's all sorts of logic built in and whatever. Now, there's still limitations, right? I mean, we can only do what the Airbnb and Vrbo, APIs provide, right? So, but like I also said though too, there are a few extra rules that happen when you are a software connected host. Like, you can request rental agreements, and that's built in. We have e-sign rental agreements because, as I tell everybody, sure, that guest might have an agreement with Airbnb or Vrbo or Booking.com, but it's your investment, it's your property. Like, it's nice to have a direct agreement, and I have people tell their guests too, especially if they balk and say, "Well, I don't want to sign this. I've been with Airbnb for 10 years. I don't need to sign this." And it's like, yeah, but it's not just an agreement of what I expect from you as a guest. It's what you can expect from me as a host. If something's broken, I promise to have a repairman out within the next 24 hours or whatever. So it's a good thing.
It's funny enough that you said, you don't know how many times I've had debates with people who claim that they know what they're doing on. I mean, as you know, I've been doing this for 25 years. And one of the things I tell people is that you have to have a guest check-in form. I said, firstly, people don't read the terms and conditions. Okay. Secondly, the guest check-in form states how many people there are. It states all your terms, your conditions, the noise policies, etc., and make the guest sign it. And what happens is when there's a dispute, you can go, but didn't you sign this?
Right, exactly.
And on Facebook and all these groups, people say, oh, that's a waste of time. It doesn't work. And somebody actually called me on it, went to Airbnb, showed them my check-in form, and Airbnb confirmed it would actually work in their favor. And they wrote back and said, actually, this Brinn guy, he's actually right. They would use it as a piece of evidence against the guest. And I've said, I've been telling you guys that for a long time, but you've got all these clowns and trolls who seem to think that they know what they've just because they've been doing it for 8 years or whatever, that have no idea that you need as much stuff as possible. And so it's great that you guys offer that as an e-rental service side because it's very important.
Well, and one step even further, for Vrbo, for instance, when you API connect, you're the merchant of record. So you're collecting the payments directly once you're API integrated. So, they take their service fee and then they pass you the credit card information, and now you're processing everything. Well, let's say that person comes back and says, "Oh, I didn't book this stay." They claim fraud or whatever. Well, you now have an e-sign rental agreement where you've captured their IP address, you've captured their name, the date they signed it, and you can send that back to the credit card company and say, "No, he signed it, and and I got a copy of their ID with it that matches the signature, and this is what they agreed to." And 9 times out of 10, they'll turn back that charge back. So that's another very important. Yeah, it's like you said, it's a lot of what we do in OwnerRez is to protect you as a host. And people think, they just wrongly think, well, I'm mainly booking on Airbnb and Vrbo, and they protect me. No, they don't. They protect themselves. So it's good to have your protection. And like I said, the other thing, when you do have a guest that pushes back, once in a while you will have a guest that says, "I don't feel I want to do this." I'll just outright ask my guests. I'll be like, "Hey, have you ever left a hotel because they made you sign an agreement?" And they're like, "No, they don't make me sign those." And I'm like, "Yeah, they do. When you put your card in that credit card machine to reserve your night, you're signing, and in real small print it says, 'By signing this, I agree to our terms and conditions. Maybe click here to see more.'" But they just don't show it to you. I'm being nice and showing you my agreement before you sign. So anyway.
Having had the luxury of traveling to a lot of countries around the world, there's a lot that require you to show your passport to verify ID.
Right. Right.
And as well as show the actual card itself to show that the card was present.
Right.
So yeah, so those are very important things that people just discount. So the next question is, what kind of customer support do you provide?
Yeah, so I will say, as I mentioned before, we're a leaner team. You'll find others that will say, "Hey, we have 1,000 people on our team. We have 50." So we do traditionally email-based support. But my team, I am the manager of the client engagement team. So kind of my whole job is in those instances where the help desk isn't quite able to answer that question. Maybe it's a little more complex than your normal technical question. We schedule calls. So we don't have a live phone call. but I'll send a link and say, hey, let's meet up via, a screen share. We use Google Meet, and I can log into your account, show it to you, and generally solve the issue that way. We also, on a lot of our emails too, have started doing what Looms. I don't know if you're familiar with Loom, but it's a screen capture tool. So instead of just saying, hey, go to the support doc and work through this, I'll actually pull up their account and say, oh, you're having trouble setting up a messaging template. I'll pull up their account, show them where to go to templates, type it all in, but I've recorded myself while I've done all that so they can watch back that video. And not only did I solve that one issue for them, but hopefully now they've seen how to do that and can, replicate that in the future themselves. We're a big component of, right? You can teach a man to fish, or you catch a fish for him, or teach a man to fish. It's better to teach him, right? So we want you to learn how to use the software. So because it's a software we hope you use years to come, right? So.
Is there anything else you would like to add that sets your product or service apart from what you think is valuable for hosts to know?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I said before, it's just I guess the OwnerRez story is kind of interesting. We were built about 15 years ago. Airbnb wasn't even a thing yet. Vrbo was nothing more than a Craigslist for listings, right? But basically our two owners were programmers, and they bought a property together just as kind of an investment. And they're like, oh, we need and their wives took over management of it. And they're like, we need software to help us do this. So they coded OwnerRez for their own business and their own wives. Never meant for it to be what it grew into, basically. And but we always kid around. We say, what better client to have for your first client than your wife? Because who's going to tell you when something's not working, right? But so they developed it for themselves in house for 3 or 4 years, and then basically one day said, man, we have something here, and took it live to the world. And basically we're a big proponent that in software world they talk about dog fooding their own software. So they eat before they sell the dog food, they eat it themselves, right? So I guess that's the concept. So yeah, like I said, a lot of our employees use the software ourselves. I was a user before I worked here. And I think that really does separate ourselves. And the other part of all that is they started this company with no VC funding, they 100% bootstrapped it themselves. So we don't owe anybody any money. So, and we're totally 100% in the black. So if customers come to us, enough customers come to us and say, hey, we want this feature, even if it doesn't make us 1 more cent to provide this feature, we're going to do that to help our customers. Whereas you will find a lot of our competitors, they owe $3.6 billion to some VC funding company. And the decisions they make are based on what their board of directors say is going to bring in more revenue, So I don't know. We really do feel that, we want you to be our client. And like I said, I know some of that might sound cheesy, but it is really the truth. I mean, we have 8, and just to tell you the size, because a lot of people would say, well, this all sounds good, but you sound smaller or whatever. We have over 8,000 clients in 119 different countries. I mean, the majority of those are North America, but we are across worldwide, and we service over 80,000 listings. So, like I said, we've been doing this a long time. I think that in itself differentiates us, and yeah, so I think that's the big thing. It's just our story and how we came to be, and yeah, we're very passionate about our product and our customers. So.
Awesome. And what future scopes do you have for your product or service?
Yeah, no, I mean, the roadmap is always evolving and changing, so I will say we are in the very early stages of looking how to add AI. We kind of held off on that originally because we weren't 100% convinced AI was ready, right? You hear these stories. I heard one about a Canadian airline, for instance, where it told everybody, hey, you can book for $10 or whatever, right? And they had to honor that pricing because that's what their messaging said. So last thing we wanted was to put AI in OwnerRez, and all of a sudden it's telling your guests something that's not true, and then you're going to come back and go, well, OwnerRez messed up here, right? So what we've done for AI up to this point is we opened the messaging endpoints, And we rely on other companies like HostBuddy and Host AI and Bestie did AI, and they all do a great job. And with the messaging side, we want to bring some more things in, like maybe you want to, you've typed in your description, but you want to use AI to improve that, so we want to add more functionality around all of that. We did just add a brand new inbox, and I can show that when I get into the demo. But we're doing way more improvements on that. A lot more features around teams too, because we're getting more and more larger PMs that are like, I have 20 VAs, and we do have a way for those VAs to log in, but right now when they log in, they kind of have full reign in the system. So we're wanting to do what we call tiered access, where maybe this VA only has access to messaging, this guy only has access to property content or whatever. So we're looking to add that. We're currently updating all of our guest forms. So some of them were old. Like I said, OwnerRez has been around 11 years. So they were old and looked old. They weren't really mobile responsive, some of our forms. Once people got into that flow, it didn't look as good on a phone as it did on the computer. So anyways, we're totally updating those. We have a lot of in the guest forms now, you can choose a language. So even though it's presented to them in English first, if they choose Portuguese, it's going to, translate. And so at least that guest can answer in the language they're comfortable in. And lastly, a property management module, like I said, was all about owner statements and whatnot. We just rolled out version 2 of that, and we're continuing to develop that, and our QuickBooks Online integration. There were some holes in that, how we don't like how it works, so we're making that better. So those are a lot of the huge things we're working on right now. But yeah.
Awesome. And how user-friendly and intuitive is your platform? And
Yeah, like I said,
can you walk us through the process and setting up and using the product and service?
Sure. Yeah, let me pull up my account again, and we'll do that. So, all right. I mean, this is the slide portion, but these are just FYI. These are the main verticals we cover. If I wasn't clear on all of that, but this is everything that you can, do in OwnerRez. But to show you the actual product, and I'm just going to pull up. Well, I'll do both. Normally, I have a demo account, but unfortunately, the demo account doesn't have live data in it. So sometimes I share my account as well. But anyways, this is a view of the calendar. So if nobody's used a PMS, I mean, obviously, normally, Airbnb or Vrbo will have a calendar like this, but here I'm seeing bookings, no matter what the source is. And as you see, when I hover over it, I can see those details. Like I said, on the speed as a feature, that was just reloading a new month, all the data. I have 44 properties in this account, ton of bookings. When I go to add a new data set, it's fast. When I click into a booking, this is where you can see all the details of a booking and how it works. And, I can get into what the charges were, the transactions, when they paid. If I had a credit card on file, that would be here. If I had those security deposits we talked about, it would tell you exactly when they're scheduled to come out, and all that on this screen. So just a lot of information about a booking that you can look at and move through. But I mean, your main question was setting up. So setting up, we have this checklist that we recommend everybody kind of move through. And it's basically 15 steps. And each step when you get to, I mean, number one is listing content, just like when you first made your Airbnb or Vrbo account, right? You can't do much until the listing's actually set up. Well, that's the same here. But the cool thing is we do have importers. So you can import the property from Airbnb or Vrbo. So you're not having to recreate it from scratch. It's going to bring in all these things from the channel. And step 2, we're going to look at the rules. There are property level rules. And then once you connect the API, there's other rules. But here we're focusing on the property level rules. And there's things like, what's the max guest count? What's the minimum night stay for that property? What are your general rules for that property? And then we'll tweak those more later. But in the setup checklist, each one has, documentation you can follow. Our support docs, I think, are really second to none. We try to walk you through with screenshots and everything else. But in that, too, we have little 5-minute videos. So if you're like me and you learn better visually, you can watch the video, start and stop it, and all of that. So, but yeah, really, yeah, go ahead.
Do you guys have like a mobile app as well?
We do. Well, so that is one confusion, and I will tell you, other reps sell against us say they don't have a mobile app. Well, that's because we don't have an app in the Apple Store per se. But
Okay.
what we
It's
what
mobile
we do
responsive, in other words.
exactly, we progressive web app is what we call it, right? So here's what it would look like on a phone. If I got the phone long ways, if I turn it sideways, but you'll see all the menus condensed down. But the benefit of doing this and why we do this is you can do anything from your phone that you can do from the computer. It's the exact same app. Whereas a lot of our competitors, they have an app, but maybe you just do messaging on it. Maybe you can just do one portion. Here, I could be on a beach in Belize and I could still set up a new property if I wanted to. I mean, I don't say it's as good doing it on your phone because everything's smaller, right? But yeah, so and we do have push notifications turned on. So you would subscribe your iPhone or your Android or whatever, and if you got a new booking, for instance, it would send you a push notification on your phone that looked just like this, and then you can click on it and it will bring you right into the app on your phone. So yeah, basically you install OwnerRez as an item on your home screen, and then you can subscribe your device to push notifications. So but yeah, I mean, back to setup. I mean, I tell people the first 4 steps are the most time consuming. So that's, bringing in the property, getting that all right, making sure it's because when you API connect to a channel like Airbnb or Vrbo, the way they have their API set up is it's a one-way sync from the PMS to the channel. So I just tell people, please follow this and go step by step, because we do have people that come in on board, right? And they go, oh, I'm going to connect to the API. I want to be connected to Airbnb. So they do that day one. And guess what? If you don't have all the listing content in, you can actually wipe out your Airbnb listing. Now you're feeding it null content, right? So, like I said, we want to make sure we follow these things. But doing so, if you follow this checklist, you're pretty much well set up for success. And we have a way to import all your existing bookings. We have a tool that we call Channel Bridge that brings in bookings from Airbnb and Vrbo. But if you are already on a PMS, maybe you need to import them from your existing PMS. So most PMSs have a way to export your booking data, and then you can just import it in via Excel and OwnerRez. But like I said, we do calls to set you up all of this as well. So yeah, I mean, that's setup in a nutshell, but a couple other things to show, I guess, for show and tell here. Let me just pull up my account real quick because, like I said, the messaging's hard to show in a demo because we don't have full. I got fake bookings in here, but they don't have any live messages. So I'm just going to pull this up real quick. Apologize for the delay. All right. So this is my personal account. Don't laugh at my 5 bookings I have. Yeah, so like and we first showed the ribbon screen before. I personally like the list screen even better. Like, so many people focus on the graphical and they want to see this ribbon. The ribbon's great. I mean, more so I like the ribbon to see what my gaps are, right? What I need to focus on filling. But the list view, in list, I can see who are my next, this is my current guest staying, for instance, and here's my next guest coming up. And when you have 20 properties, this is even more helpful, right? Because I can see who's coming, who's staying. This can be filtered by a variety of things. So maybe I just want to see, maybe I want to see historic bookings. I want to see them all, not just the ones staying. And I want to see just ones that booked on Airbnb for some reason. And I don't have a lot of Airbnb bookings because I just started with them not long ago. I was, for the longest time, I was Vrbo and direct only. But anyways, I can go in and see my Airbnb bookings, for instance. And then once again, like I said, you can see the charges of the booking. Down here, I can see any fees Airbnb charged. So this is what I collected. This is what Airbnb collected. Transactionally, Airbnb still holds that credit card. So I see that the payment was processed on Airbnb on this reservation number. But I did collect off platform their credit card so I could do a security hold. And that all happened automatically. So pretty cool. And then, conversationally, I can look just for this one booking if I want. This is what our activity view of conversation. So I am just seeing, what was sent and talked to. Not only am I seeing the messaging, like this is an Airbnb message, but then I sent emails as well. And that's a good thing to talk about too. Airbnb doesn't give you the email address up front, right? So it kind of limits your communications to their channel. Well, as part of that rental agreement process that we talked about, um, we actually send them a form that says, "Hey, thanks for booking. Can you click on this link to fill out some additional information and sign our renter agreement?" And as part of that process, we capture their email address so that now you can do post-stay marketing. Plus, during the stay, I even still send stuff via email. What I do, Airbnb always says, "Oh, it's got to be on platform." Well, I send it via email, and what I like about an email is I can now brand myself, right? Like Airbnb can't control if I'm putting links and stuff in a personal email. But then I send a nudge on their messenger that says, "Hey, by the way, I just sent some important check-in information via email. Go check that out. And if you have any questions, let's talk about it here on the messenger." So that way I'm meeting Airbnbs. I'm still talking on the messenger. And if they have issues, that's hopefully going to come through on the messenger. But I'm sending, because let's face it, an email can be so much more robust, right? I mean, I can have pictures and links and all this stuff that Airbnb frowns on. Also, people will argue, well, but people don't open emails. They don't open emails like they used to. Yeah, they do. We actually show when it was sent and when they opened it. And we can
Actually,
see.
statistically, emails are more powerful than a lot of the other things because of the fact that you want to get your backlog of emails always. The brain is always wanting to kill off that backlog of emails. If there's
Right, yeah,
something
that's
sitting
true.
there pending, it's quite irritating, and
Yeah.
it's something that you can't avoid really. So.
Yeah, well, and the other benefit to email, I think, is like I said, now I've branded myself in it. And let's say 6 months later, they're like, "Man, what was the name of that place we stayed at?" Now are they going to go into Airbnb Messenger and try to look for it, or are they just going to go to email? I know this guy sent me emails, and boom, they see it, and now they have your number and everything that they can call you directly. So yeah, I think I really believe in a hybrid approach, right? Hit them everywhere you can, because that's the other thing too. They go, "Oh, I didn't get my email." Okay, well, I've sent it in Airbnb Messenger. I've sent it here. I've sent it here. So, all right. So we're talking about messaging. So, like I said, this is you can look at it per booking, but what we've really rolled out, what I wanted to show you was now our new inbox. So, the new inbox, it looks just like email, like you said. Can give them that, "Hey, I have unread messages," right? Like, I mean, if this was unread, oops, hold on, I gotta, because I'm impersonated in, I gotta tell it I can write to it. Okay. Anyways, so when a new message comes in, they're gonna see it as bold, right? They're gonna see that they have new messages. So, like you said, that the team's gonna want to clear these. But now when I move in, and this was a Vrbo booking, so this is all the conversation on the Vrbo Messenger. This comes in automatically. Now I do have our SMS product, so I could change the conversation and talk to her over SMS. Um, once we have WhatsApp, this will work the same way. I can choose, do I want to talk on WhatsApp or do I want to talk on Vrbo? Cool thing too. Yeah, go
Add
ahead.
notes? Are you able to add notes or anything like that according to this, or push it to other users or anything like that?
Yeah, that's coming real soon. I've been advocating for that. I really would like in the timeline to say, "Hey, now I talked to him here." Put a private note in here. For right now, any notes you added are here on the booking. You can it's got a general notes field. So you could add those and they would be shown down here. Like, see, there's no notes on this booking. So, like I said, I could add notes and those would just be internal. But yeah, I feel value in having them in the conversation view. So I do hope, and what we're working on too is being able, all those great emails I showed you before, right now, those are evident in the timeline, but they don't show in here per se. Because the theory when they made this was, well, this is the conversation. This is the channel threaded conversation. But we are going to work on a way to bring emails into this view as well. It's just like I said, we just rolled out this inbox, so that's part of the ongoing improvements that we want to add. But the good thing too is if somebody's living in the inbox, maybe you have a VA and that's their whole job is just doing messaging, right? I mean, they can see details of the booking right here, so they don't have to click out of it or go somewhere else. They can see, the guest's contact information. And like I said, you can go to this timeline and maybe you want to see, what did this checkout instructions email actually say? I can go right into that email and see exactly what was sent and whatnot. So, yeah, pretty powerful tool. The inbox is great. And, you can archive these. So when I'm done, I don't need to deal with this message anymore. Maybe I'm done with it. I can just archive it and it's not shown. But I can still go back and see maybe all my mail or archive mail. We designed this to work a lot like Gmail or whatnot. You can sort, if you just want to view one property's messages, you can do that. Read just ones that are unread or read. So a lot of stuff a lot of filtering capabilities you can do with this. So yeah, that's the inbox. And then as far as messaging goes, I mean, we do a lot with templates and triggers on the automation side. So a template obviously is what you want to say, and a trigger is when you want to send it. So for instance, these are my door lock instructions for my property. So anyways, you see a template, it works kind of like an email. Well, this is an email template, but you're saying who it's from, who it's to. So I can even create these templates to myself, right? I could remove, instead of saying to the contact name, I could send it to myself as a reminder or something. So a lot of functionality you can do in templates. And then we use field codes to make it very unique to that guest. So you're saying hi, first name of guest, when you get the property name. And here I'm using automated door locks, so it's going to send them a specific door lock code, But then, and I have a trigger here that's set up. The trigger tells me when it's sent. So I'm sending it 3 days before the booking arrives at 10 a.m. I'm only sending it to guests where the payment status is paid in full. So if they haven't paid, I'm not going to send them the door lock codes. I could also say renter agreement signed or whatever. And then maybe I make another template that sends 3 days before, when payment's not paid in full. I can say, hey, I was going to send you the door locks, but I see you still owe me money. Here's a payment link, and let's get that taken care of so that we can finalize the booking or whatever. So a lot of, like I said, and this is just an example of the logic that you can do. There's all sorts of, statuses, and, I could have one template that only sends to people bringing a pet, for instance. So if number of pets is greater than or equal to 1, I'm going to send a template. If it's, no pets, then I don't send that template or whatever. So a lot of logic that goes into the templates and triggers of when and how they're sent. You can have different messages go to different channels, all of that good stuff. So.
And there's like, I mean, I'm sure you'll in your demo come to different integrations at some stage as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as far as channel integrations go, like I said, all of ours are built in house. So, some places, some competitors use like Rentals United, for instance, and they'll say, oh, we're connecting you to 300 different channels. Well, let's face it, 298 of them aren't good. Like, you're not probably ever even going to get a booking from any of them, So is there value in that? We basically said no, and we're going to vet each one and really just connect you to ones that, are going to hopefully perform for you. So we have about 20 that we have APIs for. Now, some of these are regional. Some of these, we have a big user base in Florida, right? So there's Florida rentals by owner. Obviously, if your properties are in Portugal, that one's not going to be of value to you, right? But so you can pick and choose who you connect to. The big ones, obviously, are Airbnb, Booking.com. We have Google Vacation Rentals. Home to Go is big in Europe. Hopper is getting bigger. So I mean, these are all the partner integrations we have channel-wise. And then, partner-wise, because there are, you start, obviously, someone like yourself that has done this a long time, you start realizing the value in a tech stack, right? It's not all about one software. So we do integrate to hundreds of different partners. Like, for instance, we do have a pricing module built in OwnerRez. You can just set up your pricing for free in OwnerRez if you wanted to, But obviously there is value in dynamic pricing, and we haven't built that out ourselves because let's face it, we want to be best in class in everything we do. And if we had to build our own pricing algorithm, that would split our devs' time, and that's something we'd have to, we would never be able to do it as well as these companies that's all they do. This is all PriceLab says is pricing, modifications, wheelhouse beyond pricing. So you can connect to any one of these, and it's a very simple OAuth connection. Their pricing flows in OwnerRez, and we push it out to Airbnb and Vrbo for you. Automated door locks. We have, and the big thing you'll see here is we don't just connect to one or two. We connect to a ton. So, I mean, we want you to pick the one that's best for your property. Like you mentioned needing the passports. I know in Italy, for instance, they have a law. They have to collect the passport. So a lot of people will use check-in. And they have a way that not only can they collect the passport, but they can send it to the Italian authorities automatically. I know Check-in provides that service. Hostco is one that they do if you want to do upsells. Maybe you want to sell T-shirts in your property. You could use the Hostco. Enzo Connect's, an enhanced messaging one. So lots of different, things here. I talked about AI earlier. It's, really changing the industry. We have connections to these AI partners. Housekeeping. There is no housekeeping built natively into OwnerRez. And that's a big thing where people will be like, oh, well, so-and-so has housekeeping and da-da-da. But do they do it well? These companies, that's all they do. So we really recommend connecting to one of them, Turno, Breezeway, Resort Cleaning, Aperto Teams. So, yeah, we just make it very easy. Every booking comes in OwnerRez. Your API connected to these places, so it automatically passes it over there, creates a job. And then now your cleaner, for instance, will have a login to Breezeway, let's say. They don't need a login to OwnerRez because they don't need to see all the property data or anything else. They just need cleaning information. So now your cleaners will just have that information. Insurance, like I said, there's all these different integrations. So we have over 100 different partners that we integrate with. So yeah.
Do you guys have a webhook facility?
We do. Yeah, and that's a big differentiator. I appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah, a lot of them, right? Like they'll have it set up that they only pull bookings every 3 hours or something like that. We actually have webhooks. So if something changes in that booking, the partner automatically picks up that change automatically. So yeah, it's almost real time, the connections to all these partners. So yeah, webhooks are very powerful.
And I can give you a webhook for you to send data through so that I can use it for my own processes?
You can give us a webhook. I mean, you can create so we do have a API.
Like a post. If I give you set a trigger and I give you a URL, can you push JSON data through it?
Yeah. So I mean, so we do have here in developer API settings. So you can create a personal access token, for instance, and set up a connection direct to our API through that. We don't have a very simple. I guess just adding a webhook is a little more complicated because you actually have to kind of know how to work with APIs. But it is possible, and we do have a Zapier connection. So I tell people Zapier is like API for dummies, right? So there are, but that is limited. There's only certain things that can go through that Zapier connection, but we do have that available as well. So yeah, but this is all JSON based. And so you create a personal access token for the security and do it that way. And yeah, we have all sorts of documentation, our API docs got all the endpoints that you would connect to and all that good stuff.
And can you add custom fields?
Yeah, we have custom fields in OwnerRez that are used in the messaging side. And so you can pull those custom fields. I don't know if you can push them back to us via the API. Well, I guess you can because partners can. I mean, yeah, so I definitely think you can like I said, I don't like telling you things I'm not 100%. I'm not a programmer, right? So, but yeah, I do think that custom field, and we could look at the documentation here when you get into like fields, is it a push pull? Right, here's get and post. So yeah, I guess you can post fields to us.
I mean, those are more technical questions, not for necessarily the community, just for my own information.
Correct. Yeah. No, for sure. No, I mean, partners tell us all the time that we have one of the most robust APIs. That's the other thing. They're like, yeah, we're currently connecting to 5 different PMSs, and you by far had the most information. We're the easiest. So, we, like I said, we are engineering led. We were developed by 2 engineers, right? So they definitely tend to put these things in place. So, well, I guess another part I'll show you is our direct booking piece, because like I said, that's such a big piece and what we really like about OwnerRez. So, I mean, in OwnerRez, and this is something if you're just on Airbnb, right, you're not able to send quotes and stuff off platform per se. So, I mean, this is why it's so important to build a direct booking model. But you can create a quote right in OwnerRez. So if somebody called you, a friend and family or whatever, and said, "Hey, I'd like to book your place," I mean, you could just say, "Well, what dates are you interested in staying?" Let's say they are going to do, May 12th to 16th here. I can see internally what the quote is. If that's good, I could just give them a public link. That's almost like giving them a website link, or I could create a full-blown quote here. So if I was going to create a quote for these dates, basically all I need to know is their dates of stay, and I can now create a quote. You can, when you're creating a quote, you can choose, is it going to create a block to hold the dates so that nobody else can book? Or maybe it's first come, first serve, and I'm just going to leave those dates open, You can put in their guest info and everything. I can choose how it came to me. So if maybe I want to track who had phone calls, I could create what we call a custom source called phone call, and I can attribute it to that. So later on, I can run reports and see how many bookings came via the phone or whatever. But anyways, once I create a quote, just to show you kind of the process, I've created a quote and it created the default rates, but maybe this was somebody I was talking on the phone and I want to give them a discount or something, right? So I could come in here and I could change the charges, and I could say, let me add a discount. I'm going to add, I have a discount already set up for 10% off. Maybe that's what I want to offer. Now, as you see, when I first add it, this is off the entire amount. Well, I don't want to discount the taxes and everything else. I just want to give them a discount on rent. So I'm going to move that up here, and you see the amount changed to 10% of the rent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So now I have my quote the way I want. I can even, now I've changed the charges, I can also change rules. This inherited the property rules. But maybe since this is a friend or family member, maybe I don't want to charge them 50% up front. I'm going to charge them 10% up front. I'm going to take the balance, 14 days prior to arrival or whatever. So kind of cool. And maybe on this one, I'm going to say, I trust these people. I don't want to do a hold on this one. I could turn off the hold. It's kind of cool when you're quoting all the things you can change, So anyways, now that I have the quote the way I want it to, I can send it to them. It's generating this email. I could edit this. I haven't sent it yet. I can edit it. When I do email to them, they'll get this and they'll say accept and finalize. Now, this is an example, one of those forms we're improving. I mean, this has worked great for 10 years, but we're making this much prettier. But anyways, right now they come through and, we offer travel insurance. Once again, check for your market. There might be some limitations of our travel insurance, but if you have it enabled for your account, they would be seeing this. What I love, probably in 4 years of doing this, I've only had 2 direct guests buy travel insurance. But what I love is now if I cancel based on my cancellation policy and they say, why are you keeping 50%? I'm like, well, I offered you travel insurance, but you didn't take it. So
it's funny how most people don't understand the importance of actually stating in their terms and conditions that we require you to take travel insurance. And when the reason why I put that in my terms and conditions was very simply because when they turn around and argue something, I go, but hold on, I did specifically say that you take out travel insurance. And that always helps as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. In certain markets, like in the U.S., I don't know that you can say you have to buy it, right? Like it is because it's an insurance, it's their option, but you can definitely highly recommend it, right? And that's what I tell people. I recommended you buy this. I even send them an email afterwards that's separate that says, hey, I see you didn't buy travel insurance. It's still not too late. And if you don't want to buy mine, that's fine. Here's 5 other companies you can buy it from. So I give them the option, like shop it but like I said, still it's funny nobody buys it. But anyways, you can see the payments they have. They have these choices to pay. They say looks good. Here's that point of contact form that I talked about, where even though I don't have an email address on this quote, these are required fields, the asterisk fields. So then now I'm collecting all of that information. And then down here, we have a door. This anything below this gray line are custom fields. So in my case, you can set up automated door locks that just ask for the last four. You base it on the last four of their phone number. But I've gone one step further. I say, just since I'm getting this info anyways, I'm like, tell me what number you want, and I'll set that as the number. That way, it's a number they're always going to remember. Some people might use this section. Maybe you have a legal agreement, obligation to get the license plate number of their car they're traveling in. Maybe you need the passport number, like I said, or whatever. You could set up fields in here that ask that information. And so you're gathering that right during the booking process. Anyways, the next page is that rental agreement. And this is all editable. But like Brinn was even saying earlier, what's awesome about it is this is all pulling data from the booking. So, it's pulling what their max guest count was. So later on, they can't say, well, I was never told I couldn't bring more than 10 guests. Yeah, you were. You signed an agreement saying the maximum of this property was 10, Or they argue, well, my booking was supposed to be the 11th to the 16th. No, once again, here it clearly states the arrival date, But down here, obviously, we do have a default renter agreement, but like we tell everybody, we're not lawyers. We, obviously, we can't police how this is going to work in all sorts of different municipalities, but it is a good starting point. I think it, 90% of the way. I like how things are wording too, and like it says if a lot of the time. Like, for instance, maybe you have 10 properties and 5 of them have hot tubs. Well, that doesn't mean you have to have 2 different rental agreements. This just says if a hot tub or pool is at the rental property, it will be prepared and tested and blah, 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 blah. So if there's not, then this clause 13 doesn't apply to you, Mr. Owner, So if linens and towels are rented from the guest is responsible for lost or damaged items at the cost of 2 times the published standard rental price. I do that because, even though it only cost me $30 to buy a new set of linens, I got to source them. I got to ship them to my cleaner. She's got to make an extra trip to take them out there. So just as a deterrent, I'm like, I'm going to charge you 2 times what it cost me to buy those. But anyways, lots of cool things you can put in your rental agreement to cover yourself. And then they're signing it down here. Now, in the end, we don't do any AI checking. Did they, they could sign it like this, right? But if the name of this booking is Steve Clark and they've signed it like this, that's a pretty good red flag, right? Like, why isn't it signed by this primary guy's thing? But the big thing here is we're collecting the IP address. So if you ever did have to take this to court or something, right? This is unique to that computer, so. Anyways, and then the last screen of the process, we're collecting their credit card info, card number, and here's all the details they already put in, but they could change that if it's a different billing info. And they would continue, and the next screen would say, thanks so much for booking. The process is complete, So yeah, that's a direct booking from start to end. And like I said, that one started from a quote. The process would be the same if you were starting from a website. So this is an example of a hosted website, just to share with you.
And hosted websites, they come as a free part of the module?
No, they are a slight upcharge because let's say we're hosting the photos and all of that. So now there's data costs involved in pulling all of that information. So, but it is pretty, it's, yeah, go ahead.
How much is the extra charge for the website?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you had one property, you're at $40 a month. You add in a hosted website, it's $55. So it's $15 a month. But that, as you get more properties, that's just have a difference. But the big thing is at $15 a month, so you're looking at less than $200 US a year. If you
hosting is what? So hosting is between 5 or 6, and you haven't even, that's a WordPress site or something. So you haven't even exactly. You haven't even paid for the development. You haven't even done any of those things, and you haven't even started yet. Whereas you buy the plug and play system, it's already done. All the bugs are worked out, and it taps directly, I presume, which would make sense, right? Directly into the property system, which means that anytime you're changing the availability or rates or anything, it's automatically pushing it into your site.
And if you did want to host yourself, maybe you're very technical or maybe you already have your own website. But we do find a lot of people already have their own hosted one, but maybe for the bookings, it just says contact us and it's an email form, right? So we do have widgets available as well. So the first widget is this property search widget. So this arrival, departure, number of guests, this, as we see, this homeowner has 30, or this PM has 30 properties. So just like Vrbo, most people come, they know their dates, right? So they want to stay this weekend in May, and they have 7 guests in their party. When they search, it's going to come back and say, oh, well, we only have 14 available. So you could put this same widget on your own website, and it's going to pull this first picture and the base description from OwnerRez. And the widgets are free. They don't cost anything. So if you did want to host yourself, and you're, like you said, you're paying $8 for hosting, you could still build your own website and do it that way. But like Brinn was alluding to, now you're responsible for the security, any bugs that happen, anything like that, So I do still feel there's great value in the hosted website because we're doing all of those things.
Developer sites, it becomes expensive after a while. It's all the updates and all the bugging, and so if you offer it, it's great because it takes all that frustration off, that overwhelm, because it's a lot of overwhelm on when there's other things to be done.
Well, that's a big thing I tell people. I go, look, the great thing about the hosted website is it's set it and forget it. You build it. If I add another property to my portfolio, it's automatically just going to pop up on the hosted site. You don't have to do any coding or add another page. Whereas if you did host it yourself, you're going to have to build a property page, add in the widgets, all of that stuff. But we want you to spend your time marketing and helping your guests, not being a web developer when you're not, right? But yeah, and here on the hosted website, you'll see looks like Vrbo and Airbnb. You got the photos. These are pulling in from OwnerRez. If somebody clicked into it, it can be sorted by room type, things of that nature. You can go into more of a gallery view here. So, lots of things here. Let me go back to the main, exit out of photos. But yeah, this description, like you said, is pulling right from OwnerRez. So when you want to change your description or update it, you update it in OwnerRez. And not only are we going to feed this site, but that's going to change Airbnb and Vrbo. You don't have to go into each channel anymore. You change OwnerRez, and it's going to change everything else. Your nightly rates are shown here on a calendar if you want. If you don't, you can turn that off, and the rates wouldn't be shown here. But this is and this hosted website hasn't done a lot. This is kind of out of the box, kind of what it looks like. Just to show you what's possible. This is my personal website. So, I put more focus on the first photo. And since I just have a single property, I'm not multiple. This is an external widget. We don't provide this, but I've added, just to show you can add anything HTML, you can probably add to the hosted website. I have a chat bot that I added through HostBuddy. So cool thing, this is just to show off AI real quick, right? If I want to say, are you available for the upcoming holiday, let's say 4th of July. That's pretty big in the States, right? Maybe not where you're at, but anyways, the cool thing is the AI is fed from the PMS with all the availability, all the property details, all of this. And now somebody doesn't have to call me or email. They don't even have to look at the calendar. They can just add. Now, the AI does take a little bit to answer, but it should come back. Yeah, great news. We are available July 4th. The nightly rate for that date is $450. We have a 3-night minimum. Can we confirm your full stay? So pretty cool how this works. Or maybe there's property questions. Do you have a hot tub? And so, like I said, this one's through hostbuddy.ai, but Bestie, Host AI, they all have this, and they do very similar features. So anyways, just to show you something you can put on your website to help you. So once again, the whole point of software, in my opinion, is to help you save time. So now if people can ask questions this way, that saves you time, right? And the people are getting the answers they need. So, and this to me answers better than I would have ever. If somebody asked me, do you have a hot tub? I'd be like, yeah, we got a hot tub, right? I mean, this pulls from my property info and just says some cool information. So anyways, we also have a blog built into our hosted websites. If you want to enable that, I say adding a blog is an awesome way to build SEO, search engine optimization, right? Google finds property details kind of boring because even though this guy has 30 properties, they all say about the same thing. So Google doesn't find that super interesting. You add a blog, and now not only am I a property website, I'm talking about wineries and vineyards. I'm talking about whitewater rafting. I'm talking about these other things. So now and I will say I have Google Analytics built into my hosted site. So I get more people coming to my website for this article over anything. It's just kid-friendly activities. They're bringing their kids to the mountains, and they want to know what's fun to do. Hopefully, they find my website, and maybe they'll bookmark me for a future booking or something. So, but yeah, this is the having a direct website is a great way to market your bookings, or your rentals, and start getting bookings from hopefully a source other than Airbnb and Vrbo. Too many people, like I'm in Facebook message groups. I don't know if that's big in Europe per se, but I have people, they say, hey, I'm looking to come to the Georgia mountains. We need availability. So I go in and I post my personal website link. Everybody else in that forum is posting their Airbnb or their Vrbo link. And I'm just like, that's so silly, because what happens, they go to Airbnb and they say, oh, this property isn't quite for me or whatever. Where are they going to go next? They're already on Airbnb with 10,000 other rentals available. I instead want to send them to my direct website, especially if I have more than one property. So maybe this one's booked to the dates they want, but they come back up and go, oh, well, look at all these other properties. Or they might even go to the master availability here and they go, okay, I wanted to come the 8th, but that's booked. Well, this one's not. Let me look at that one and see what it has to offer. So anyways, yeah. And on your hosted website, it's not just about, a lot of our competitors, they have it and they build the properties well and the calendars. We let you make other pages. Like this is just a custom page. So this isn't here by default, but they've decided to try to buy reviews, right? They're saying if you send us a review, we'll enter you into a raffle for a $50 gift card. They've added this FAQ page, that has a ton of questions already built in. So yeah, lots you can do with your hosted website, and it's a real powerful thing.
Awesome.
But yeah, I mean, obviously I could probably go on all day, but I think that's the main features and functions of OwnerRez, unless you had any other.
Can we go to the reports? What kind of reports can people expect from, like, the overview? Is it possible to add like expenses? I mean, there's automated expenses, obviously, with each booking, which would be a check-in, check-out charge or cleaning charge, amenities, those kind of things. You can really drill down on those. Are there ways to add additional expenses and run it like the accounting side of it? Meaning like... No,
I totally get it. Like, let's say you have a landscaping fee that, exactly, that's not part of the booking, but you need to charge that back to your owner because you as a PM are paying that. Yeah. So that's all part of our property management module. And I'll have to go into this account to show you that.
Can you automate, like, for example, like a cleaning to the cleaners or cleaning company? Can you automate a check-in, check-out schedule for today, for example?
There is a report that will do that. Like I said, for cleaning type stuff, we do recommend connecting maybe to, Breezeway or Turno or Perto or something, because that's what they really focus on. But there is, like, we have this report that's called a daily checklist, that shows you just the guests that are departing or staying for that day. So you could create this report.
Can I automatically send that to somebody?
I wish. Yeah, unfortunately, no. We don't have any automated emailed reports as of today. It is something that's been requested, and I do hope that we add that functionality. But right now, no, you would have to, you could print this to PDF or whatever, and, email it. Or what most people do is, we talked about team access. we do have portal access as well. This is more so for owners, but some people will do it for their cleaners as well. So I could create a cleaner login, and they could log in and just see the calendar and see a list of the check-in and check-outs and whatnot. So that is an option. But yeah, I really wish we did have that automation of the report sending. Hopefully soon.
So in terms of the expenses now, like adding expenses on the fly, or
Sure.
let's say, can you add, let's say there's a guest staying right now. Let's start with that. Let's start with a guest. So guest is staying and they want the fishing rods, and because I see some of those properties are extra things, can you add something on the fly to theirs and charge them for it?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So surcharges, I mean, first of all, the one cleaning fee you talked about, let's say like a charge on a cleaning fee. We do have, if you're using the property management module, so even though I charge the guest $200 in this instance, I can say, well, the PM gets, that full $200. Or, maybe the owner cleans themselves. Yeah. So I could say the owner is going to get this money, or we can split it, right? I can say the owner gets, the PM gets $150 and the owner gets the rest minus a commission or whatever. So lots of cool things. This is basically creating the expense for that charge, so that's would automatically be done on each booking, and that's all fine and dandy. Now, as you were saying, like, let's say you're talking to a guest and they say they want to add firewood or whatever, right?
Firewood, exactly.
Yeah. So if I go into, I went into property, let me go into a booking. So during that booking process, there is a way to set up what we call optional surcharges. And that optional surcharge, like here's firewood, for instance, it will be shown, and you can have, a description. Now, I just put this as a photo just to show I can put photos. But we provide 5 pieces of firewood. Maybe you have a picture of your stack of how much firewood that is. And during that direct booking process I showed you, remember how they could select travel insurance? Right below that, it would say, here's some optional surcharges. Do you want to add this to your booking? So they could actually add it at the time of booking. But if you wanted to add it during a booking, maybe you've talked to them or they've called you and said, hey, we need more firewood. Can you have that delivered to us? You could say, yeah, absolutely. And you can just come up in here and change charges. And just like we added that discount before, I can now add firewood because I already have that set up. Maybe I want to put that in front of taxes because it's a taxable. And you'll see the taxes actually change. Like, right, this tax was, well, no, maybe these won't because they're not percentages. But if this was a percentage of the booking, let's say this is 10% of the booking. Oops.
So this kind of charge screen is basically line items for an invoice, right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So and now, and let's say this had a different expense on it or whatever. This line, even though I'm charging them $25, I could still, do I want to create an expense? Because me as the PM, I'm paying this, so I want to expense the entire charge amount. And I'm going to create that as a, whatever the expense category is, so that I can now pay that vendor, firewood guy, whatever. So then at the end of the month, when I run my owner statements, it's going to pull this out of the booking as an expense that I keep. So yeah, and then so expenses can be added, and then expenses also can be added for different things. Let's say it's not a charge on the booking, but it's just, I don't know, they broke something or whatever. Maybe you replaced it out of inventory. I could record an expense on this booking of a certain amount or whatever. And this is at the booking level. Expenses can also be made at the owner level or at the property level, right? So when I'm adding an expense, like here's a good example. I have AC repair, for instance. So the air conditioner broke and I had to hire somebody. So I've added this $1,000 expense to the property Autumn Ridge. And it doesn't look sure, I guess, when you after you edit it, huh? When I first created it, I could add the receipt to this too. So that way, when they go through and they go to the statement, they can actually see the receipt. So lots of cool things you can do with expenses. But yeah, on the PM side, if you are a property manager, you would generate an owner statement for the owner. And when you do, it would look something like this. Now, this is just a basic view. I'm just showing the owner revenue for each booking, just to show you you're in full control of what view you want to send, but this is more detailed view. It shows kind of everything. So, on the second line is a good example. The gross of the booking was $1,400. 114 of that was taxes. There was a non-commissionable amount of $225, probably the cleaning fee. We don't charge expenses on the cleaning in this case. But that's all configurable. So the net for commission was only $1,125. We're charging 20% for our services, so the PM made $225. Then we go back and figure out what the owner revenue is, which is gross minus the taxes minus the commission equals that. It just turns out the owner revenue is the same in this case. But what I'd like to show here is that for whatever reason, this guest hasn't paid in full. They've only paid 85%. So even though I owe this owner $1,125, I'm only going to pay him $963 on this booking. And then next month, when I run my statement, it's going to say already remitted $963, and it's going to say balance due. I can now remit the other $250 or whatever it is. So, anyways, it's going to add up all the bookings. This guy's got a lot of bookings, and then the expenses are all going to be shown below. Now we're not showing the cleaning fee expenses because we pre-deducted those in this case. And we can see those up here that there was stuff that was, taken out or whatever. But anyways, the expenses I want to show them are here. And we're basically saying total bookings minus the expenses. This is how much we owe the owner. So yeah, that's the property management module just in a nutshell. I mean, then you can record the payout. You can record how much you paid them. You can then create a PM statement that once you have a ton of owner statements, it will roll those up. Because we work in an escrow model normally where you're collecting monies well in advance, right? And those are all sitting in the trust. So you pay the owners out of the trust, and then you got to pay yourself, right? So you got to pay yourself all those, commissions and expenses. And then lastly, you can record what your payout to yourself was so that you can record it all in one place. Now, like you said, we are not a full-blown accounting software, so a lot of people still use QuickBooks, but this is a good way. Accounting is all about ticking and tying and checks and balances, right? So this will do that for you. So, and then standard reports outside of property management. You don't have to be a property manager to, there's this line item pivot report, for example. I'm running the bookings just on February, and you'll see this still shows the breakdown of how much was rent, how much was cleaning fee, how much did I sell on that optional firewood this month, how many discounts did I give? So, and every report we have, regardless of what it is, can be exported to Excel. So if you don't like the way ours looks, or maybe you like the data in this report, but you don't want to show it all to the owner or whoever you're giving the report to, you could export to Excel and delete out certain columns or whatever. So, but the reports are pretty much preset. You just select, what properties do I want to be in the report? What's the report period time? Maybe I only want to see a report for Airbnb. I don't want to see it for every listing site. I could do that and narrow down just what were the Airbnb bookings versus what were my Vrbo bookings or whatever. So lots of cool, differentiation you can run in the reports. And then, we have reports for everything. Maybe I just want to see a simple, what was my occupancy this past year? Let's compare that with the year before that. So my occupancy this year compared with the year before, I can see a report once I have historical data in there that shows me, for this property, January was up, but February was down, so then I can look back, are those market factors or is that something I need to look at better? But you can see how you're performing. So lots of cool reports in here. But that's how reporting works for the most part.
Awesome. Is there anything that you you've got you said that there's two different modules. There's the property management module and a owner's module. Are they different products, or they're the same products but different? It's like an add-on.
Yeah, basically you have the way we bill, right? Like I said, there's these modules here are ones that not everybody needs, right? So not everybody has owners, so we don't enable the property management module by default. So if you turn this on, there is a small extra charge, but this is what's going to allow you to do everything with your owners. So, but I was talking about the owner portal. That is built in if you're using the property management module, or even if you're not, you can still set up. You won't be able to set up owners without the property management module, but you can still use portal access for your cleaners, like I was talking about before. So I'll just show you that real quick. So if you were using portal access, like this is that company we showed you before, just realize it is totally white labeled, which is nice. So as a PM, you're not pushing people back to the PMS. A lot of our competitors, even with their hosted websites, you'll be able to tell that it was from XYZ company. Now you register your domain name, and you see here we put the portal on a subdomain, portal.shenrent in this case. So that was a big thing. It didn't used to be that way, and we had PMs that they had 100 clients, let's say, and all of a sudden their clients were leaving and going to OwnerRez directly because they're like, wow, OwnerRez looks pretty full featured. Why don't we do this ourselves? And we don't want to hear from our own customers, right? So we quickly changed that to be white labeled. So anyways, I'm going to pull up an owner real quick. This is an example. If the owner did log into there, they would come to something like this. Now this is that guy, he owns a lot of properties, right? Most of your owners, maybe they're only going to have one or two, so it won't look this, crazy. But I did want to show what's possible. So once again, we're going to show bookings the current month, and we're going to show 5 months in arrear and 5 months forward. We tell their owners, these aren't necessarily the exact numbers they're going to get in their owner statement, because the way this report works, it's prorating it for the first of the month to the 31st of the month. Whereas a lot of people do their statements based on arrival date. So the data might be a little different on this report, but it does show them it's a good, indicator of how you're performing. So occupancy percentages here. But once again, maybe you have an owner that's a real pain in the butt and they just ask too many questions. You don't have to show this, right? Like we could say disable this view when we're creating the portal. Or let's say it's a cleaner. They're not going to have that dashboard. They're going to come, they're just going to see the calendar. So in the calendar view, once again, he's got too many properties, so they're not shown by default. But let's say the guy only has 3 properties. Oops. What'd I do? Oops, gotta log back in. I clicked something I shouldn't have. Hold on 1 second. So anyways, back in the calendar. Oh, I know. I clicked back to main account and I'm impersonating. So anyways, and you're once again in full control. Like for instance, for this owner, I've chosen to show the revenue per booking, but I'm not sharing the guest data because even though I might have guest data on this booking, the owner doesn't need to know that. They don't need to know it's Bob Smith or their email address because as a PM, that's my information, not the owner's. Or maybe you have an owner that wants that, you could turn it on. Same thing, most PMs, I will say, don't show the per booking charges, but if you have that relationship with your owner and you want to, you can share that detail, and when it was paid and all that right here on the calendar. But the cool thing here, so like let's say I was setting it up for a cleaner, right? I wouldn't show any of the revenue or the guest data. I would just show a booking and how many in the party, because that's all they need to know. But now the cleaner could log in and they could see exactly when a booking's leaving and when the next booking's coming. Also, your owners, if you give this to them, they could block off their own time. So, right, if they're coming and they want to stay at this property, now I can create, and you could just tell your owners, just make sure you tell me it's you coming, put a title in here of owner block or whatever, so it shows up in OwnerRez. Oops. And now we'll see, I think I booked that in April. So here's my block, so and that's going to flow over and block off Airbnb, block off Vrbo, everything automatically. And then the statements we created, once they're created and published, they'll see their statements here. They can see which ones have been paid. They can click through and see what they can expect, so yeah. So that's a owner portal. And this is probably in our roadmap something we want to improve too, because this view is a little older. We need to pretty this up a little bit. So I do hope there'll be some new things coming with the owner portal. But overall, it's very functional. You can provide some transparency to your owners. Yeah, they have their own login. So.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Steve. And is there anything else that you think that would be suitable for a new Airbnb host in terms of making a decision on your product that you really think that we haven't covered in the demo yet?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the big thing I would say is, we do talk about OwnerRez being robust and, complicated to set up. So that will scare people away sometimes, or I'll hear a lot of times, well, I'm brand new, or I only have one property, so I'll look at this later when I'm more into it or whatever. I always tell people that's kind of the wrong way to think, truthfully. When I started, I didn't know anything about this business either 4 years ago. And I started with software from day one, and I'm so happy I did, because I learned how to do it the software way. And it made everything so much easier. There are some differences from when you're using software than when you're just native on the channel. And too many people, they'll start on Airbnb, they'll get used to doing it the Airbnb way, let's say, and then they'll go to add Vrbo or whatever, and they're like, Vrbo's different, it's hard, whatever. And then they'll say, oh, now I need software. They'll go in, they'll go, oh, this still isn't Airbnb. I mean, let's face it, Airbnb has done a very great job with their UI and how everything works. But if
UI is standing for user experience.
Yeah, user experience or user interface. Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, it's second to none. It really is good. But if you want to scale ever and, expand your reach and be on all these different channels and whatnot, because that's where the management headache, it's easy when you're just on one channel. You're just on Airbnb. But if you want to take those direct bookings, you want to eventually be on, Airbnb might only get you 60% occupied. So now you have 40% sitting open. So that's when you start adding other channels. Maybe I can market other places. That's when the management headaches come in. And if you start using software from day one and know how to use software from day one, it's so much easier to add all the other channels and make everything talk together and work properly. So I guess that's the one bit of advice I would have is don't be scared if you're new. Dive into software and start early with it, and it's going to be that much easier for you, in my opinion.
Awesome.
Yep.
Steve, you've been an absolute superstar. Thank you for showing us OwnerRez, and I look forward to sharing it with the community and obviously promoting your business for people who think it's their best choice for themselves.
No, awesome. Yeah, no, really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, I guess just to exit out here, let me exit out of this. If you are brand new to OwnerRez, when you come to the OwnerRez page, oh shoot, I guess I didn't log out. Let me just open a new incognito here. But this isn't going to say my booking area, it's going to say login. Or here and start here, it will take you to the demo and the login form. So we do have, hopefully this was helpful. You don't necessarily need to come to the demo either. But if you wanted more information, we have our own series of webinars all of the time. We do a demo once a week. So feel free to join us on that. We also have focus sessions on just specific areas of the software. So if you had a question on how to set up rates in OwnerRez, we have a focus session coming up in a couple of days. Down here are all of the recordings of all of those, and recordings to, other companies. Maybe you want to talk to Boostly about setting up a direct booking website. We met with them and had an hour-long webinar with them. So this is our series of education and webinars, and these are open to the public. They're not behind a paywall. So even if you're using a competitor, but you want to learn more, come watch these videos. The more educated the whole industry is, the better off we all are, right? So feel free to come here. And like I said, this won't say my booking area. I say join now. If you join, you do get a 2-week free trial. And yeah, well, I'm sure I'll be talking to you then more at that point. But yeah, so we'd love to see how we can help you. So appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time, Steve, and looking forward to watching your guys' development as you guys grow even more into the future.